Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Happy 4th of July, everyone. And I thought, in honor of this holiday, to do something a bit fun. I'm going to give you my favorite films of all time. 20 to be precise. And how does this apply to Star Wars? Well, as you can imagine, there were a few Star Wars films among my favorite movies of all time. Now, this is not a list of what I think the best movies are, nor do I think it's a list of the films according to their historical significance or cinematic significance. These are the films that I can never get tired of and that connect with me personally on an emotional level, and therefore they are my favorite movies of all time. These are not in any particular order unless stated otherwise. So let's jump right in. Number 20, The Princess Bride. Inconceivable. Yes, one of the most endlessly quotable movies of all time. Is also a very sweet story about a grandfather reading a story to his grandson. A story of swashbuckling adventure and romance, with a magnificent cast starring the likes of Robin Wright, Cary Elwes, Andre the Giant, Fred Savage, Mandy Patinkin. The list goes on. It's a marvelous film because not only is it extremely quotable, but it's very well written. Adapted from William Goldman's novel of the same name. Oddly enough, William Goldman wrote the novel and wrote the screenplay for the movie. Witty and charming. This is a movie that always leaves me with a smile on my face. I recently had the privilege of introducing this film to two people who had never seen it before, and that was very rewarding. So number 20, The Princess Bride. Number 19, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Oh my, Alfonso Cuarón's film, the third installment of this franchise, is, I think, the best, or at least tied for the best, of the Harry Potter movies. But I feel it's also the best made. It's got its own sense of style, Cuarón's amazing sense of style, a great use of music. John Williams, who had written the previous two Harry Potter films, wrote the score for this film. In fact, building the entire score out of the Shakespearean phrase, "something wicked this way comes." A great cast, as you can imagine, and one of my favorite scenes of all, the scene of Lupin and Sirius Black confronting Severus Snape in the Shrieking Shack. I love that scene because we have these legendary British actors on screen together. I mean, you could fill a whole book with discussing just the supporting cast of the Harry Potter films, particularly the older actors. Prisoner of Azkaban, I think, is the most stylistically interesting, and introduces so many things that will become pivotal in the rest of the series. Alfonso Cuarón brings a beautiful style to this film, and I just can't sing this movie's praises enough. Number 18, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Now, I do believe Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, is a better movie. Star Trek IV was the first Star Trek film I ever saw, And just like The Princess Bride, it's endlessly quotable, endlessly charming. Not only is it the lightest film and the funniest film, but it also has a great story arc about Spock. Spock relearning what it is to be human or half human. And a wonderful, wonderful sense of fun. Also, this was filmed at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is where the Cetacean Institute is, which is actually only about an hour and a half from my house. So, really, just a charming film. I grin ear to ear every time I watch it, and has so much personality. Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. The next is my favorite adaptation of a stage musical, the 1962 film version of The Music Man. Robert Preston, need I say more? Great musical numbers, great cast, great small town America atmosphere. A wonderful movie. I believe I've lost a bit of track, but number 16. Henry V. This is the 1989 adaptation of Shakespeare's stage play directed by Kenneth Branagh. Branagh stars in the film as King Henry. This is his directorial debut, and he surrounds himself with an incredible cast of legendary British actors, many of whom you will recognize. Kenneth Branagh, of course, went on to direct, probably most famously to modern filmgoers, Thor. The first Thor film is his film. A marvelous movie, a great adaptation of Shakespeare, giving the play, which is about war and violence, a very gritty, down-to-earth feeling. With just chock full of great actors, great action. In fact, I might argue the best battle scene ever filmed. It could be argued. So number 16, Kenneth Branagh's Henry V. Number 15, Mary Poppins. Oh gosh. This is a film that I've been watching since I was a kid. And when I was young, I loved it because of its catchy songs, its fun scenes, but the older I get, the more I realize the amount of depth that is there. Every song in this movie has resonance. Even the fun songs are not just there to be fun songs. Their resonance is felt throughout the film, and many of the lyrics of the songs come full circle as the movie progresses. The true heart of this movie is Mr. Banks. As I was a kid, I thought it was about Mary Poppins. But ultimately, it's about, to coin a phrase, saving Mr. Banks. This is truly a marvelous film for the whole family that can be enjoyed on different levels by different age groups. Mary Poppins is a treasure, and I believe one of the greatest films ever produced by Walt Disney Studios. Number 15, Mary Poppins. Number 14, Amadeus. This is the adaptation of the stage play of the same name by Peter Shaffer, who, like William Goldman with The Princess Bride, Peter Shaffer adapted his own play, in this case, into the film's screenplay. Amadeus is about Mozart, or at least Mozart from the perspective of a jealous rival. This movie is not about historical accuracy. This is about history, and particularly Mozart, from the perspective of a man who's lost his mind. So don't worry too much about the history. It's a marvelous film. Marvelous character studies of Antonio Salieri and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Great use of Mozart's music. A truly remarkable film. Dark and funny and just goes all over the map and does it with such skill. Milos Forman, the director of this movie, also directed such classics as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and The People vs. Larry Flint. A great director, a truly marvelous film about one of history's most fascinating figures. Number 14, Amadeus. Number 13, David Lean's epic, The Bridge on the River Kwai. Wow, where do I begin? A character study. A study about the madness of war. Alec Guinness's Oscar-winning performance as Colonel Nicholson, 20 years before Star Wars. A marvelous, full-scale epic in every sense of the word, but manages to be both big and little, large and intimate. An amazing film, all leading to probably one of the greatest climaxes in movie history. And also, oddly enough, humanizing the Japanese. The story is the Japanese during World War II bring captured British soldiers to build a bridge. Forced labor. Now, this actually does a brilliant job, and mind you, this movie came out in 1957, of humanizing the situation the Japanese commander finds himself in. A truly amazing film that takes an amazing look at what war does to people. Number 13, The Bridge on the River Kwai. Number 12, Inception. I don't even know where to begin to describe how brilliant this film is. Inception, by the great Christopher Nolan, is a film that can be endlessly analyzed and could be looked at from a myriad of different ways and doesn't just have to be taken one way. Truly a great work of art, a great cast, a great story, and arguably Christopher Nolan's greatest film, but tied with an entry that we're going to get to soon, but I don't want to spoil it. So, Inception by Christopher Nolan. Number 11, The Hunt for Red October. John McTiernan's brilliant submarine action thriller set during the Cold War about the mysterious behavior of a Soviet submarine captain played by the great Sean Connery. A brilliant film filled with great performances from many great actors and character actors who you will no doubt recognize. The Hunt for Red October is a tightly made action thriller that I just never get tired of. It's so brilliantly put together. See it if you haven't. It's amazing. So number 11, The Hunt for Red October. Number 10, Ratatouille. Now, I get a lot of weird looks for this. This is my favorite Pixar film. I'm not saying it's the best Pixar film, but it's my favorite because I think it speaks to me because it is the portrait of an artist. Remy is an artist. This is the story about him pursuing his art. Extremely well written, extremely well told. One of the best looking Pixar films. A truly great musical score by Michael Giacchino. Don't watch this movie on an empty stomach because it'll make you hungry. So number 10, Ratatouille. Number 9, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Stanley Kubrick's marvelous science fiction epic is a film that I find difficult to describe to others. A truly mind-bending story that, like Inception, can be taken at face value or lends itself to endless analysis. 2001: A Space Odyssey is visually stunning. Made in 1968 with some of the most impressive visual effects that even hold up today, I think. With one of the most amazing antagonists in movie history, HAL 9000. A marvelous film, brilliant on so many levels. Number 8, or number 9, I should say, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Number 8, Raiders of the Lost Ark. High adventure. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, adventure film of all time. A truly astonishing film from the minds of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. A throwback, and yet a truly pulse-pounding adventure story. Number 8, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 7, The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. Now, Return of the King is not on my list. I must admit to you. Even though if you were to stick Lord of the Rings movies all together as one big movie, it would so definitely be on my list. But taken as separate films, I think The Two Towers, though it does stray from the book, still is brilliant and expands the world of the Lord of the Rings, adding some great new characters, new locations, new music, introducing, of course, Gollum, one of the greatest film characters of all time, truly expanding the world of Middle-earth even further. A marvelous, marvelous movie. So number 7, The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. Number 6, Star Wars. Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. But I just like to call it Star Wars. Where do I begin? You know on this podcast how much I love Star Wars. And I could talk to death about this movie, which I already have, so I will spare you any further punishment. Needless to say, Star Wars, my number 6. Number 5, one of the greatest American movies of all time, Casablanca. Endlessly quotable. Endlessly referenced. People know this movie even if they've never seen it. So well written. An incredible cast of characters with great actors of the silver screen. A true American classic. If you have not seen Casablanca, see it. So that's my number 5. Let me just back up to say, my top 5 movies are my top 5. In the order that I'm giving them. Films 6 through 20 are in no particular order, but films 1 through 5 are in order. So, as I said, number 5, Casablanca. Number 4, The Dark Knight. Yes. The Dark Knight. Those who know me know I could talk to death about this movie. Yet again, from the brilliant mind of Christopher Nolan. A truly astonishing modern film. Not only is it a great film, but it has changed filmmaking in our modern time. Even now, 11 years later, movies have changed because of The Dark Knight. The bar has been set higher, not just for comic book-based movies, but for film in general. And like all great films, that has been both a good thing and a bad thing. Good because it's caused people to raise the bar, but bad because people have tried to emulate it and have failed miserably. But that being said, this is, I think, one of the great films of our time, certainly to me, one of the greatest films of the 21st century. And my favorite superhero and comic book based movie. Not only is it because Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker is so marvelous, but I think the core of this film that often gets overlooked is the character of Harvey Dent, played brilliantly by Aaron Eckhart. He is the heart and soul of this movie, I think, thus giving us our morally complex story about the truth versus fabrication, about how to fight the unstoppable. A marvelous, marvelous film. My number 4, The Dark Knight. My number 3, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I think this is the best of the Lord of the Rings movies. I think this is one of the greatest adaptations of a book and brought the world of Lord of the Rings to the big screen, and cinema has never been the same since. Peter Jackson and his team gave us, I think, one of the most monumental film trilogies of all time, beginning with this movie that came out of nowhere. Or, well, not that it came out of nowhere, but it surprised people about how good it was. And it was a breakthrough on so many levels, appealing to both the casual audience goer, the fans, the critics, and even the Academy Awards voters. Truly astonishing. My number 3, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Number 2, my favorite Star Wars film of all time, The Empire Strikes Back. Yet again, you've heard me talk about it. There's not much more I need say other than this is the template of a good sequel. And in fact, every sequel since is often been referred to, a good sequel, as The Empire Strikes Back of this trilogy. Especially if it's the second installment of a trilogy. The Empire Strikes Back is the template by which these are measured. Introducing so many great new characters, great new music, taking the story in deeper and darker and ultimately more meaningful direction. My number 2, The Empire Strikes Back. And my number 1, Lawrence of Arabia. David Lean, who directed The Bridge on the River Kwai, is back again for this marvelous 1962 masterpiece. This is one of those movies that I cannot really think of anything that's wrong with it. It's that good. Yes, it's incredibly long, but I don't mind the length. But it's the actors, the characters. The character of Lawrence himself is such a mystery that I think that's actually quite brilliant. Instead of us knowing too much about him, he's an enigma. Truly marvelous. Filmmaking at its finest. One of the greatest musical scores, some of the greatest cinematography, and I think some of the greatest characters put to screen, starring a who's who of great actors. So those are my films. Let me count down from the bottom. Number 20, The Princess Bride. Number 19, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Number 18, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Number 17, The Music Man. Number 16, Henry V. Number 15, Mary Poppins. Number 14, Amadeus. Number 13, The Bridge on the River Kwai. Number 12, Inception. Number 11, The Hunt for Red October. Number 10, Ratatouille. Number 9, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Number 8, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 7, The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. Number 6, Star Wars. Number 5, Casablanca. Number 4, The Dark Knight. Number 3, The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. Number 2, The Empire Strikes Back. And number 1, Lawrence of Arabia. Those are my favorite films. Happy 4th of July. Thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.